भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवा स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदा स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, thou abidest in all. Thou art all. Thou assumest all forms. Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss. Salutations unto thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Opening song, a beautiful prayer to Divine Mother.
Salutations to you, all the infinite
Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, His Divine Consort, Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi, and Swami Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna is the example, in fact the most intense example that one can think of the experience of God while being in the body. He is like us in almost all apparent aspects, but then he was also seeing God all around, everywhere, and sometimes the vision of the world, the different names and forms would get obscured or removed, but the perception of the divine will always remain. It is like this, that if you are sitting in a movie theater, then whether the movie is going on or whether the movie is not happening, still the screen is always there. So that form, that perception of the divine formed the constant aspect of his experience. The other things like pictures came up on it, but not without this real background that pervaded all these pictures. He had a constant relation with God. It is very difficult for us to even to feel, let alone to explain these things. But if we study his life, it is one gets amazed and bewildered as to what kind of intense experience of divine he was constantly immersed with. He could talk to God as if we are talking amongst ourselves, but more intensely. And the more intense because we are talking with each other through mediacy of our senses and so forth. There the experience was that this mediacy of sense organs and mind was removed. So the perception was much more intense, the more intense divine perception that he was constantly having. And he was having a relation with that God. And he had experienced different moods, many moods of connecting to God. The mood of being, for example, a father to God, like you see in the example of Ramalala, that he was having the image of a little Rama, the Rama as a child, and he assumed there the role of the father of that Rama, the parent of Rama, and that was his connection there. We had other moods of Sri Ramakrishna also, like a maid servant to Lord. That also was one of his moods. He entered into many different what is called moods, or the Sanskrit word bhava. But his mainstay was his relation with God as his mother. He assumed the role, not consciously as such, but that was his natural role. God is my mother, I am her child. And he mentions that himself, that how is the attitude of this. He was loath to use the word I to the body. So he would say here how the attitude here is, that I am the child and God, that mother, divine mother, she knows everything. She is taking care of me. And so, like a little child who is carefree when he is with his or her mother, that mother is taking care of all. The child just plays about and never has a care in the world. So that was his constant attitude, that was his mainstay. That other attitudes, other moods he did experience, but this was more or less constant. Just to give an example, that I go to various places to give lectures or to have other works. Like this morning I had a program in Connecticut, then I will be going to North Carolina. I had some days back I had gone to some other place. So I go to so many places. But mainly I am here in Providence, you see. So that is how you can understand that Sri Ramakrishna did have other connections with the divine, but his main connection was God is my mother. And that is how his whole life, you can say, that God, my mother. In fact, many couldn't understand that when he said, I will go and ask my mother. This happened when a teacher, a great ascetic, Totapuri his name, he had come to that place, Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna was staying. And he saw in Sri Ramakrishna a person with tremendous qualifications to practice the discipline of non-dual Vedanta, where one transcends with deep concentration, transcends all the bounds of name and form, and then merges in the what is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a state of consciousness without any attributes associated to it. It is very difficult to feel that it is, we are always conscious of something. Now remove that off, and what remains, that absolute consciousness, to remain in that state of absolute divine consciousness. So he wanted to train Sri Ramakrishna in that, and he said, will you do it? And then Sri Ramakrishna said, I don't know whether I will do, I don't know, my mother knows everything, I will go and ask mother. And this teacher, Totapuri, said, okay, go and ask. And then he saw Sri Ramakrishna entering the temple of Divine Mother at Dakshineshwar. He thought, what is this? And thought that this is just an effect of those wrong past impressions and will get gradually corrected. But when Sri Ramakrishna comes and tells him, yes, mother said that, yes, go ahead and do that spiritual practice. In fact, I have brought him here for you, so to teach you. And so his practices began. So you can see how intensely he would see the Divine Mother. And when he would use the word mother, it was not always, with connection with the earthly mother as such. Earthly mother as well as, and that is a great episode in his life, his wife, and he could see the Divine Mother in all three. It is, in fact, in all women he could be seeing the presence of the Divine Mother. It is his connection with the phenomena was always, well, that is a manifestation of Divine Mother. Mother is manifesting in all these various forms. So, it is, we see that that was happening when this teacher of non-dual Vedanta, Totapuri, told him to concentrate and feel that these all names and forms, they are not real. And we all understand that, but our minds are so much glued to names and forms, we find it difficult to see the abstract reality as such. We intellectually understand, like the example I give, animal crackers, and all the shapes and the associated names to that shapes. This is a deer, this is a rabbit, and this is an elephant. We know that they are all actually same. So also all these different shapes, different forms, and the associated names, that, well, this is a chair, that is Mr. Sunil Babu, that is Jim Melzer, that is, and all that, this is building, this is pillar. All these we say that these are different things, but actually all is one reality, the divine oneness. We understand, but we don't perceive. Sri Ramakrishna could perceive that. So, therefore, when Totapuri told him that, okay, abstract, go beyond all names and forms and concentrate on that absolute consciousness. And his mind just went beyond all this. It was very simple for him, because there was no attachment, except there was one obstacle. Only one obstacle. Imagine the purity of that mind, only one obstacle. As soon as all the forms were abstracted, the form of the Divine Mother would emerge. And that was preventing him from merging in the formless absolute. That was his main connection to the divine. But Totapuri, the teacher, insisted, why can you not go beyond that? And he took a sharp piece of glass and then pressed it on his forehead and said, okay, concentrate here. And Sri Ramakrishna himself describes that there he imagined knowledge to be the sword. Knowledge to be the sword. And with that sword, he cut the image of Divine Mother, and then that I and the world, everything merged in the formless oneness. So that is the constant thing that his mind used to get occupied with. At the end of all his spiritual practices, he was merged in this Samadhi state for many months. He said that the body wouldn't have lasted, but Divine Mother, as it were, sent a holy man there, and he took care of him. He would force food into his mouth by beating him with stick to get some awareness awakened, and push food in his mouth at that time. He was not aware whether it is day or night, hot or cold, nothing. And then at the end of about 6 months' time, in this state, he saw the Divine Mother. But this time, Divine Mother told him to be in Bhavamukha. It is a word that you don't find a mention of this in our traditional scriptures. This is a very special word. It has, of course, the word bhava and mukha are found, but this bhava mukha, and in English it is difficult to translate it in English, that it is that a state where you are on the threshold of the complete merging in the divine and then the world of names and forms. So it was like this, if somebody is standing on the threshold, then can see inside and outside both. Just think of this analogy. Somebody standing on the threshold now can see out and in. So he was told by Divine Mother again and again, 3 times. He said the Divine Mother appeared and told him that you remain in that state. So it is again Divine Mother's command, and thus he stays in that state. So that was a constant awareness. You read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna a very touching conversation that M was there, the chronicler of Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's a great book, friends. So he asked M just to test. The conversation was about ego, and he asked M that, do you think I have ego? Do you think I have ego? And M thought for a while. Yes, he is like all of us, is associated with the body. He uses the body. He is saying this, and sometimes also talking about his experiences, and also gives advice, this should be done, this should not be done, and so forth. So he said, after a thought, that for the work of the Divine Mother, you have kept a little ego. For the work of Divine Mother, you have kept a little ego. And Sri Ramakrishna corrects him. No, not like that. For her work, she herself kept a little ego. That is the state. No trace of the ego that we could think of. Even that everything is by Divine Mother. There was, as you know, he was married to Sri Sarada Devi, and then as a very young girl, about 16, 17-year-old girl, as Sarada Devi comes and stays with him, they were staying together, and yet there was absolutely no sensual desire also in any of them. One day, actually it was the day that when Holy Mother was doing some physical service to him, she was massaging his feet, and suddenly asked, just as if shooting at the point blank range, that how do you look upon me? How do you look upon me? And without a moment's delay, Sri Ramakrishna replies that the Divine Mother who is worshipped in the Kali temple, in the temple there the Divine Mother is worshipped. That Divine Mother, then the mother who has given birth to this body, and the one who is now massaging my feet, all three I see as one. So that is how his vision, his perception, his experience with Sarada was. It is that it is the Divine Mother. Every person, it is so difficult, one can understand, that how to have even a glimpse, a little iota of this kind of attitude about the one's spouse is so difficult to get. Sri Ramakrishna was immersed in this tremendous experience. And one day, after a few months passed by, when they were staying together, sharing the bed, and yet there was no kind of awareness of the body, Sri Ramakrishna would be merged in that experience of divine throughout. And then he thought that he got an idea, so to say, that Holy Mother should be worshipped as the manifestation of Divine Mother. That was a great incident, a unique incident in the spiritual history of mankind, that it is when I was coming back from Connecticut, I asked what should I speak about today, and one of our friends in the car told, well, you can speak about this. And I said, wow, that would be a good idea. So that experience of Sri Ramakrishna, where he not only saw Divine Mother in Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, he saw Divine Mother, but wanted to make a very concrete presentation, as it were, of that experience, to solidify that experience. He decided to worship Holy Mother as the Divine Mother, offering worship. I will read how it is described in this book, Sri Ramakrishna and his Divine Play. A little more than half of the Bengali month of Jyeshtha, mid-May to mid-June, had passed. It was the new moon night, an auspicious occasion for Falaharini Kali Puja. Divine Mother is as such worshipped on every new moon night, but four are considered very special amongst those, and one of them is this Falaharini Kali, the Divine Mother who takes away all the fruits of your karma and makes you free. So Falaharini Kali. So the worship of that night was to happen. The master made a special arrangement for privately worshipping the Divine Mother as Shodashi. Shodashi is a particular form of worshipping the Divine Mother. Mother Durga is one of her forms is described as Shodashi. So the note is there, footnote. The term refers to the worship of Divine Mother in one of her 10 aspects, namely Shodashi as a beautiful, as an immaculate 16-year-old girl. This is the note given by the translator. So that is why Shodasha means 16. So a 16-year-old, beautiful girl. So that is in his room he was performing that worship, not in the temple. At the right side of the worshipper's seat, a low wooden seat, a beautifully painted with rice powder pigment was placed for the goddess to sit on during the worship. The sun had set and the new moon night arrived in a veil of deep darkness. Hriday was performing the worship in the Kali temple that night, so he helped with the preparations for the master's worship as much as possible and then left for the temple. After the priest Dinu had finished the evening worship service at Radha Govinda temple, he came to help the master prepare for the worship, and then he left. It was 9 p.m. in the evening when the preparations for the mystical worship were complete. The master had sent a message to Sarada beforehand to be present during the worship, and now she arrived in the master's room. The master sat for worship. The master finished the preliminaries and sanctified the articles of worship by repeating the mantras. These are the standard rituals that happen in the worship. While she was watching the worship, Sarada had already entered a semi-conscious state, semi-conscious spiritual state. So without fully knowing what she was doing, she moved like one who is spellbound, and sat facing north on the right side of the master, who was seated facing east. You can think of, how that room is still there, master's room at Dakshineshwar, and you can picture, those of you who have gone there, or even those who have seen the pictures of it, that master was facing east and Holy Mother was facing north in that room, and master uttered various mantras. He repeatedly sprinkled sanctified water on her from the pitcher placed in front of him. He then uttered mantras and invoked the deity with the following prayer. O Divine Mother, Tripura Sundari, O Eternal Virgin, possessor of all power, please open the gate of perfection. Purify her body and mind and manifest yourself through her for the welfare of all. So that is a great incident in the life, that this worship was like that, completed. I don't want to read all the details, but very exciting. That and he bowed down to her with this prayer. O consort of Shiva, the most auspicious of all auspicious beings, O doer of all actions, O refuge of all, O three-eyed goddess of golden complexion, O power of Narayana, I salute you again and again. Actually, we chant this prayer almost every day here in the evening Vesper service. Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike, and so forth. So the worship was completed. The master's sadhana culminated in this worship of the Divine Mother in the body of a woman who was an embodiment of spiritual wisdom. Both his divine and human aspects had achieved ultimate perfection. Then another thing happened as all the spiritual these disciplines that master performed. were over. They, as it were now, his shop was full of the articles to be distributed. So it can now be opened for the public to come and get that. So at that was the occasion, and he started praying that, "Oh Divine Mother, you showed that so many of the disciples, so many people would be coming to seek this message from here. Where are they?" And he started earnestly seeking them. That earnestness was so intense, very similar to the earnestness that he felt for the vision of Divine Mother. Both had the very comparable descriptions, that he felt the pangs as if a wet towel, his heart was wrung as a wet towel is getting squeezed. So with that pain he would cry that, "Where are all those who were to come?" So he had now nothing more is to be gotten in the shop. It is only to be distributed. So at that time he prays to Divine Mother that, "Well, now I don't care for now whether this so-called relative goodness or badness and so forth." It is good to read this part. The master said that no worldly object or relationship obstructed his journey to the experience of that Nirvikalpa Samadhi according to Vedanta. At the outset of his spiritual quest, he had renounced all desires for enjoyment in the exchange of the vision of the Divine Mother. He prayed, "Mother, here is thy knowledge, here is thy ignorance. Here is thy righteousness, and here is that unrighteousness. Here is thy good, and here is that thy evil. Here is thy virtue, here is thy vice. Here is thy fame, and here is thy infamy. Grant me only pure love for thee. Grant me only pure love for thee. I don't care for anything else." All these, what Swami Vivekananda calls in his beautiful Song of Sannyasin as dual throng. All these pairs of opposite, they exist together. If you take one, the other also is taken. If you, for example, think as beautiful, there is the ugly, its counterpart is also there emerges. If you think of something as good, then evil as a background to see the goodness that also emerges. So this is a dual throng. Sri Ramakrishna says, "Take both these things. I don't care for any of them. Please grant me the pure devotion to you." And then of course he says there, "But I could not offer truth and untruth like that." The truth could not be renounced. He said that, had I said that, "Oh Mother, take your truth and take your untruth," then, well, if I could not hold on to truth, even what I said, it would lose its validity. So I could not give up truth. Everything was given to Divine Mother. Much later, there are so many such experiences. Even amongst, he was, deliberately the temple, that manager or owner, Mathur Babu, he wanted to, test Sri Ramakrishna's that adherence to this continence and perfection in the divine experience. So, because he had the doubt that this is all probably a mental aberration of Sri Ramakrishna, he needs to be treated. So, he sent some prostitute there. And Sri Ramakrishna there also could see only Divine Mother there. Nothing happened. Then it is, so he could see the Divine Mother when he saw another prostitute was living around there, and he was passing, and he said, "Oh, Divine Mother, today you took this form." Huh? So it is, for him, all these were the forms of Divine Mother. He could therefore go into ecstasy, divine ecstasy, even by hearing the very bad words. And he said, well, the ka in those expletives and the ka in the name of Kali, are they different? So he could see Divine Mother in all these aspects. Now, his wish was all surrendered to Divine Mother. So one day, when he was very sick with that throat cancer, and it was, even now the cancer is very difficult to cure, very difficult to treat. You can imagine those days. So the physicians and all, they had given up any hope of recovery. And some people used to come and see him. One day, a very well-known scholar of scriptures came to see him. His name was Shashadhar Tarkachudamani, Shashadhar. So, after seeing Sri Ramakrishna's condition, he said, well, the great yogis like you can easily cure themselves by concentrating on this disease. The place of the disease, just keep your mind on that, and then they just get rid of that disease. Sri Ramakrishna replied, oh, you, although you are a scholar, how can you say such things? The mind which has been offered to God, how can I bring it back to the reality of this body and this throat and the disease? That is not possible. But other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna heard this. Prominent amongst them was Narendranath Swami Vivekananda of later days. So he started arguing with Sri Ramakrishna that no, you must do this. You must do it at least for our sake. Sri Ramakrishna kept on saying, I do not know anything. Oh, Divine, whatever Mother does, that happens, I have no idea, I cannot. Then you go and say to Divine Mother, no, I cannot say such things to Divine Mother, But he insisted, Narendranath, and he had that such force of argument, and Sri Ramakrishna loved him so dearly. So Narendra said, you have to do it for our sake. You are not for your sake, but for our sake. You have to hold on to this body. We have to learn still so many things. How will, if you die, then how it will we will learn. So you have to tell Divine Mother, go and tell now. And Sri Ramakrishna has to say, okay, yes. Yes, I will ask Divine Mother. After a while, Narendra was not going to let the matter just stay there. After a while, he comes and asks Sri Ramakrishna, hey, did you ask Divine Mother? And Sri Ramakrishna his face was crestfallen. That it is, did you ask Divine Mother? Yes. What did you ask her? I pointed out that look at this throat, oh mother, look at this throat. I cannot eat anything because please make such arrangement that I will be able to eat a little bit. And Narendra's face lit up. Okay, so he actually went and said that to Divine Mother. Then what did Divine Mother say? She scolded me. Huh? Divine Mother said to me, are you not eating through all these mouths? Through all these mouths, who is eating? This self alone is real. The self is same in all bodies. That was the experience that Sri Ramakrishna had. We, in ignorance, think that this self here and self there is different. Are they different? If we even intellectually analyze, we will see that they are not different. The bodies are different, that's all. It is, the containers are different, but the contained is the same. The self in all is the same. So, therefore, this Divine Mother says to Sri Ramakrishna, who is eating through all these millions and millions of mouths. And Sri Ramakrishna says that he had to hide his face in shame. I was so ashamed of asking such a thing. Yes, friends, Divine Mother was so intensely real for him. Everything happens through this Divine Mother. She is the fulcrum around which his life always moved. So it is a great thing to read these experiences that Sri Ramakrishna had and the intense connection that he had with Divine Mother. Once it happened that he went to see a zoo. And in the zoo, there was a lion kept, and looking at the lion, he went into Samadhi, that state of divine intoxication, because he remembered Divine Mother, because this is a lion is, as you can see, this picture is a little hid there due to garland, but the Divine Mother sits on the lion in this form of Durga. So he immediately remembered that and then merged in that consciousness. So it is, that was his constant attitude, connection with this Divine Mother. So let us feel this and let us pray that Sri Ramakrishna's this connection, when we meditate upon it, let that help us invoke a similar connection in us to see all around the presence of the Divine Mother. That he used to say that the connection with the Mother, seeing God as Mother, is the safest one. It is the safest connection. In other connections, there is some tinge of selfishness and so forth. But when one thinks of God as one's own mother, thinking of God as Mother is the safest one. So it is a very good spiritual exercise to think about it. So let us meditate on this for a minute or so, and then if you have a question, please ask it. Yes, please. Yes, Shrikant.
Sri Ramakrishna felt the image of Divine Mother emerging in a non-dual state. What kind of state he was in? Because for him at that point, the Divine Mother was the highest reality, a living mother, and he cut the image as if he was killing the mother in a way.
Yeah.
What kind of leap of faith, how could he get that? On what basis could he move away from that reality, which was the highest at that point?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is a very good question. That Sri Ramakrishna did not hesitate to cut that image of Divine Mother to attain to the state of that formless awareness. So, how did he not feel hesitation? He always thought of Divine Mother as the highest reality. Yes, he did, and therefore it was an obstruction to his feeling of the God as formless. Now, he did not lose the sight of the truth that it is with form and without form. And therefore, if the mind is getting attached to a form, then and is therefore hesitant to go into formless, then the Divine Mother that you are holding on to is a limited Divine Mother that is only in form. So, therefore, Sri Ramakrishna's mind immediately made a resolve that it is he has to have that courage of even cutting that most beloved figure of Divine Mother. It is a lesson to us that it is good to take something as a representation of a higher reality, but there should be the understanding associated with it that this representation is not always necessary, is not identical with the thing that it represents. So even if this representation is not there, the reality remains the same. So that was the great experience and a great teaching. Of course, for almost all of us, even that state, there are so many other obstacles that even cutting them is very difficult. It is a far cry to even see the Divine Mother, and then the question of cutting it in two pieces and so forth. But the principle is there that attachment, even the slightest, to any name and form could be a hindrance, a bondage to the realization of Divine Mother. If one looks back, that the first vision of Divine Mother that he experiences and which he has narrated, there is no form there. There is no image or form that came with it. It is the all-absorbing, all-pervading ocean of light. He describes it very graphically actually. That is the beauty because of Sri Ramakrishna, that these things he put them to at least to some extent in words for us to get a little feel of it at least. He says that a luminous infinite ocean all around me, the waves started coming on me, and my ego, it just got drowned into it. I don't know then. So that was the Divine Mother that he saw, not a particular form. So then he, as a representation, when being in the world, he, in the world of names and forms, he chose, or that was the form that he found most suitable, the form of Divine Mother. And so that represented for him the truth absolute. But that he was aware that this representation should not be adhered to. It is useful, but not absolutely necessary as such. And so he could get over that.
When he was in the Samadhi, the non-dual state of Samadhi, he was being taken care of by the holy manager, the Buddha.
Yeah.
So he explained it as if, well, in later days, that it was Divine Mother herself sent him to have that experience also being taken care of as far as the body goes. But the concept of Divine Mother doesn't exist when he was in the state of Samadhi itself. This was more of an explanation given after the state.
Well, it's a very, again, a very intriguing question. The question is, we discussed that there is this Divine Mother, as it were, kept somebody when he was merging in the divine awareness, that Samadhi, was not conscious of the surroundings or of the body. So how he survived? So he later described that Divine Mother kind of sent a holy man there, and he used to beat me, and when a little awareness would arise, he would push food in that body to make it live. So now it is how this description really is not understandable from our standpoint as such, because how Sri Ramakrishna was then aware of somebody appointed by Divine Mother and all that. Yes, it is something that Sri Ramakrishna experienced. Our experience, is in my last Sunday lecture also, this problem had come about the description that how could Sri Ramakrishna say that there were these forms of the seven sages in the realm of the formless. That it is we cannot understand that. So even this also falls, as far as my understanding goes, in that category that is very difficult to explain in our language as such, that how Sri Ramakrishna was aware in that state of Samadhi of Divine Mother appointing somebody. It is probably one explanation is that it is after seeing the results you conclude that this must have happened. So by looking at the result, one can see that this must have happened. So Sri Ramakrishna remained alive, and he could feel that somebody had pushed food in his mouth, because at that time he became conscious for a split second or so. So now he sees now how that man was sent. It was ordained, therefore. It had to happen. Who did that? Now, who did that? The Divine Mother did it. And that is why he understood that Divine Mother had kept the body alive for a purpose. This body had a purpose of imparting this wisdom. It is those who, through lot of spiritual practice, perchance, their number is also very, very small, would get this experience of Samadhi. It is told that their body cannot last. Their body falls off because they fulfill the purpose of having the body, that to see the God. That's the purpose of life. They achieved that purpose. Now the body is not necessary and it cannot be preserved because the body is not made for a function later on. So Sri Ramakrishna's body was not for that purpose. He had the divine experiences right from the childhood. So his body was to be kept for education. So he therefore mentions that everything showing at his body, everything here is for the benefit of the people, for people to learn from. So that is why the body was kept alive. Yes, please.
Can you please speak a little bit about how one can think about the unity of Divine Mother and Sri Ramakrishna? We were talking about the relationship. Unity, for example, here we are worshipping
Yes.
Divine Mother as
Yeah, that's again a very nice question. And I will just quote one incident that happened in Kashipur. It is many times you will see that devotees said that your will and will of the Divine Mother has become one. But on that occasion of the worship of Divine Mother, things were brought. It was that night. And then, it was not at Kashipur, Shampukur Bhatti, at Shampukur. So there, and they all thought that, well, what is to be now? Sri Ramakrishna will begin worship. Where is the image of that? He didn't mention anything. And then Sri Ramakrishna was getting transformed, as it were. And then devotees realized that Sri Ramakrishna is Divine Mother. And they worshipped Sri Ramakrishna that day, that night actually, as Divine Mother, as Ma Kali. So that is how you could see that oneness between Sri Ramakrishna and the Divine Mother. So it is, therefore this relation is an assumed distinction and yet oneness. It is like this, mother and a child. When you look upon them as separate, yes, there is a relationship, connection, that child and the mother. But then together you can look upon them as one entity, mother and child. If you see that this was also the awareness of Sri Ramakrishna, that oneness with Divine Mother. So it was a relation, but relation does not mean necessarily a separateness. It means the oneness also. That relation means there is a connection, joining them. Now, if you look upon it as one, then it is one, like this microphone and then the amplifier to which it is connected. They are two connected. But then you can look upon them as one, as the sound system. So it is like that Sri Ramakrishna and the Divine Mother can be looked upon as one. It is more, you can describe it as, say, my nose and me. It is a connection, that there is a relation between the nose and me. That nose makes me, get the air that sustains me and so forth. But as a person, you see that it is one, When I say my nose, it is a separate entity. But suppose somebody hits me on nose, don't go to do that, but it is, suppose, then why did you hit me? Because there I am one with it, you see. So it is like that. It is. So it was so closely connected that where the boundary of distinction would vanish is difficult to tell. Thank you. So I will give an announcements for the upcoming programs. By the way, till November 19th, I will not be giving this Sunday lectures, and there will be many wonderful speakers who would be substituting me for this period of time. Next Sunday, that is October 8th. Yes, Vishwanath, please go ahead, you should give people enough time to take out the money and put it there, you see. So the next Sunday, October 8, the discussion is on Divine Mother. Bishop Paul, a wonderful speaker, a Celtic monk who had come here earlier also, many times he has spoken here. So he was for many years known here as Father Paul. But he recently, some years back now, he was made bishop. So he is now Bishop Paul. So he will be giving a talk on Black Virgin, the French Mother Kali. A very beautiful idea, a French Mother Kali. So there will be a last class on that book on coming Tuesday, and the Friday Jnana Yoga class, they will go on as usual. The morning and evening meditations and prayers, they go on as usual, as per calendar. So I will conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Chinese faith, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. We'll have Arati now.